Hello and welcome back to another video regarding the Triton LEGO Railway layout. This is the Super Train Station, version 4.0. The station is completely rebuilt from the ground up, and I quite like how it turned out. I mean, it's very similar to how it looked previously, but there were new opportunities to try things in a more proper way. So the layout is now going to be completely rebuilt on official LEGO 32x32 base plates. The reasoning as to why that is will be explained in an episode of Triton's Tales. However, this video is going to be focused on the station itself, and whilst it looks very similar, there are a few kind of areas that have been shifted around in terms of its overall shape, like the restaurant area, and it's also a bit more modular, especially with the overpass area for the sake of ease of storage. So yeah, I will be showing that off later on in the video. So one thing I want to quickly point out, naturally, as I said in the past, my floor here in my room is a carpeted floor, and it isn't perfectly level. So you can see a few areas where things aren't quite lining up perfectly, but that's okay. It's not so much an issue with the bricks, it's just because the floor isn't even and things aren't going to be lining up properly. Another thing worth pointing out is that this is technically incomplete. The corner here where I'm using some road plates still needs a bunch of 2x4 tiles to kind of fill their spaces. That brick link order has yet to arrive. It's taken a little bit longer than I want to. At the same time, it's not really anything worth kind of holding back this review with. So I'm going to get this video recorded, and I will of course let you know when this has been filled in and officially completed. As we are at this end of the station, it is worth pointing out that naturally after this came the signal box. I have no idea what I'm going to do with the signal box segment. Naturally, it will of course follow. But what I more so mean is how I'm going to attach it to this end. I like the idea of a small, like not a level crossing, but a foot crossing. I still got this bit of open baseplate space here after the steps on the edge of the platform. And there is a footpath that normally goes here, but again, I'm not too sure how I want to actually implement this, and the signal box isn't going to, well, the rest of the layout for that matter, isn't going to be touched until the new year starts. So that area is going to be left blank for now, but naturally, as it was with the previous version of the layout, there was a footpath, and it was very colourful with all of the plans I had going on. It was a nice small section of the layout. And again, I like the idea of having that return, but having something go across the tracks as well. There weren't too many ways that workmen can actually get across the tracks from one side of the layout to the other. So it would be nice to try and think about that a bit more, and this looks like a good area to do so. The overall look and feel of the station is basically the same. It's the same architecture, the same build style. It's just a little bit easier to kind of build and put together whenever I go to shows because of how it is now sitting on the base plates. So the overall look and feel of the station, again, is still there. There's nothing really different. There are a few areas that are a brick taller, you know, one plate shorter in some areas, that sort of thing. The overall look and feel, again, is the same. The platforms are all the same as it was previously, just slightly different in terms of its overall dimensions. And I will be showing off a few other areas, some of the internal areas, that is, because that is something that I was able to modify and definitely update. So yeah, let's have a look at those now. So the best way for me to show off some of the internal details is to deconstruct the station as I go, which is not quite the wisest thing ever, but at the same time, not every single roof was designed to be removed. So this is the ticket office, which is a nice big open area people can come and go. So people who just come off the train don't need to worry about going through barriers. I haven't been to that many train stations, so I can't exactly say this is perfectly accurate, but at the same time, this is a custom design station, so the freelance option is there. We have the ticket desk as well. We have a map to the trains. We have a clock in there as well as a little bin, so it does have a bit of homeliness to it. But yeah, whilst it's nice and simple, it's also pretty much that. It doesn't need to be much more. So this is the key bit of modularity I was aiming for when I went to completely rebuild the station. And my goodness, I am actually quite impressed with how this turned out. I didn't think it would be this easy, but amazingly it was. And, you know, it works. That's the main thing. It works. So the main crossover centerpiece came off like it could previously. But now, as we go to this side, you can see this sort of cover piece that can come off as well as the main corner piece. And it's only ever held on with just a few studs. So it is literally just as easy as taking it off like this with a bit of pressure, and boom, there it goes. That is much easier for the sakes of storage, and of course, I can now have a look at what is inside. So after this, we will have a look at the cafe area, which I confess is quite simple. but this is the kitchen area to that cafe slash restaurant. I mean, I do have a printed brick that does say restaurant on it. It's above the door, which you can see there. So I suppose restaurant will be the more appropriate word to use. But ultimately, this half of the layouts, the station, I should say, is probably my more favorite piece because this is where it's bigger ultimately, but again, this was the bigger focus. The modularity to be able to take it apart for the sake of storage is just so good. I need to remember to do this sort of thing when I go to the rest of the layout. And finally, we have the restaurant area, which I must confess is going to be a very simple interior design, and you're going to see that in just a second. So the roof can come off like it could previously. It's only sat on a few tiles. Putting it back on is a bit of a tight squeeze, and it does need both hands, so I sadly can't quite do that with this video. I need to be able to hold onto the camera with one hand. And yes, this is what it looks like on the inside. We have seats and tables just on the floor. It's not exactly high quality. So this is something I can technically get away with because this side here is the inside of the layout. I mean, you're not going to see much of this if you went to a show and saw this anyway. You'd have to get onto the inside of the table where I would be standing in order to kind of know that this was here in the first place. But one thing I was able to do was use a small kind of free, what is it called? A gift with purchase, that's what it's called. These small kind of coffee stand sets, and some of the details we're taking in to expand this kitchen area. So as I showed off a moment ago, it does look a little bit busier in here, and ultimately it just has a bit more life. Of course it would have more life if the minifigures were here, but for the sake of this video I've had to keep them to a side, and they are in a box in the storage already. But yes, that is the restaurant. And there we go, that is it for this video. Thank you all ever so much for watching. It was nice to be able to rebuild the station, especially from the ground up, because knowing there were a few areas that needed improvement, and again, the modularity of being able to take a few areas off for the sake of storage was really cool. And the overall end result is similar to how it was previously, but knowing how it got here and the way that it was built, it's just so nice to be able to look back. I've said this countless times in my videos, but you know, when I say, oh, I'm so happy with how this turned out, but you do get that feeling, especially after a bigger project like this. This took 5 days to make, to completely redo, like without having anything else to do during the day. And yeah, with most of the station already existing, I basically had all the parts I needed. Thankfully, no other parts needed to be ordered in. That was something that I got to a few times, and I thought, oh god, am I going to need to get more of these? Oh, thank goodness I've got these parts elsewhere. So yeah, that was a thing I experienced. And yes, this is the first of many rebuilds that will be happening for the layout. All going to be happening on 32 by 32 base plates. I'm going to need to fork out a lot of money for that, and changes to the layouts will happen over time. You're not going to see layout videos back to back like I did in the past, but in a serious note, the layout is going to get a much needed overhaul because it was nice for what it was, but it's still quite big and it needs to be condensed down. So whilst it's nice to have a lot of space to run my trains on, there is such a thing as too much. So there we go, that is it for this video. Thank you all ever so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next episode. Bye bye.